yo ho ho, and welcome back to my channel. This is Dom and a Christmas special. Well, it's not really Christmas yet, is it? So we'll take this stupid hat off because hey, I'm feeling like a bloody oven roasted chicken in that. So welcome back to my channel. It's Dom. I just thought I'd do a little sort of community question thing for Christmas. And also take the opportunity to wish everybody a happy Christmas or a happy festive period if you don't celebrate Christmas, and wish you well. 2020 has been a pretty shit year, I think we'll all agree, but one of the beautiful things I think I feel has come out of 2020 is how much closer it's brought the wargaming community. I feel that it's been tighter, more engaged, more connected than ever, and that's the nature of the beast, I guess, that we're all stuck at home for large parts of the year, and we've taken advantage of the Tinternet to connect better, and that's a good thing. And hopefully when normality resumes in whatever shape that is next year, we'll continue to have that connection, and we'll continue to build the relationships and build on the relationships we have. So thank you to everybody who connects, who listens to, watches my videos, who joins the podcast we do on a Monday night, who just is there to chat. And likewise, I am always there to chat. Very happy to do so. So, point of this video. Christmas, New Year is a time for resolutions. So my first question for all you out there is, and I don't care about all your prediction or your desires to lose weight or to win the lottery or whatever it is, but I would like to know, what's your New Year's wargaming resolution? What is that for 2021? I'll tell you what mine is. Mine is, and everyone knows I won't really keep to this, but I'm going to try and minimize the number of figures that I buy next year. 2020 I got extremely carried away at times and bought far too many figures. I did a good job of painting a lot of them, but I still have huge numbers of figures sitting waiting to be painted and based and everything else. So I am going to be a lot more disciplined in 2021 on what figures I buy new wise. I'm not going to say I'm never going to buy any more figures for the year, because I know that won't happen. So I'm going to try and be very disciplined about what I buy, and to try and work through the backlog primarily next year. And I also am inspired by what I did with the Norman figures, 15-year-old Norman figures I found in my garage. I want to go back through my old figures, tart them up, rebase them, and repurpose them for the games I'm now playing. I've got stashes of 28mm figures, 15mm figures, 20mm figures that I could spend the next year rebasing and tarting up without touching any more figures. So that's my New Year's resolution. Don't buy too much more and take advantage of the stuff I've already got. So what's yours? So second up, I would like to know what your wargaming predictions are for 2020. So two main categories here. I would like to know what you think will be the hot rules or period that 2021 will bring. I think looking back at 2020, definitely increase in skirmish type games, continuing a trend, right? So I think there's been a lot of interest in skirmish games for quite a while, and definitely there's been continuation of growth of that in 2020, and I don't see that slacking off anymore. But I think two areas I think will grow in terms of maybe less common at the moment are World War One. I think there's been a steady interest in World War One over 2020, and I think that may well grow in 2020. Sorry, been in steady interest in that in 2020, and I think it may well grow in 2021. I think there's some interesting new figures out there, rule sets and so forth. So I think World War One could be interesting, and I'm not necessarily thinking about trench warfare, because I think that's pretty specialist, shall we say. But I think the early war, the later war, when there was a bit more mobility, some of the stuff that went on in the colonies in Africa and so forth, in the Middle East, the Far East, could be an interesting period. I think the sort of periods around World War One, so the Russian Revolution, 1919. I think that's an interesting period. I've gamed that to a degree myself with some homegrown rules using 20mm figures, because you've got the reds and the whites, obviously, but you've also got a lot of different national factions. You've also got interventionist force from the US, UK, France, and it's an opportunity to use those World War One figures from later on period of World War One in a very different conflict, but using very similar kind of setup. So I think for me, World War One and sort of possibly heading into things like Russian Revolution could be a growth area. I think the other one is the Westerns. You've already seen a huge, in the latter half of the year, definitely a lot of interest around Western games, and I think that's only going to grow. It feeds into that skirmish mentality that you can play a game relatively quickly, relatively easily. You don't need a huge amount of space, only a few figures, and I believe that will get bigger in 2021, and again possibly expand out into sort of associated areas. So you're heading some of the Mexican wars, maybe that sort of thing. But I think Westerns, everyone loves a good Western, don't they? So my next prediction is around what's innovation are you going to expect to see in 2021 for wargaming. And I think kind of we've already seen in 2020 the widespread adoption of 3D printing, moving from the sort of whatever the lattice one is through to the resin one, and the prices of 3D printing coming down and down and down, and I think that will only continue through 2021. I think we'll see much more 3D printing coming into the hobby, particularly into the historical hobby, than previously, and I think that will allow one of the innovations I expect to see is a lot more personalization. So companies or organizations or even individuals who will develop things especially for you. So if you've always wanted that particular Napoleonic unit that you can't buy anywhere else, somebody will produce it for you. Or if you have a big enough ego, you want to have your head on the general leading the cuirassiers at Waterloo, someone will do that for you. I mean, I know you can already get that to a degree, but it's very expensive and not that widespread, not very easy to do. But I think that sort of thing, for me, will start to do that personalisation. I think the other area we've seen a lot of this year, and I think we'll only get more so, is the sheer breadth and quality of MDF buildings and terrain. It's fair to say, I think, that MDF buildings were pretty rubbish a few years ago, but the quality, you look at some of the stuff that's been produced by people like Sarissa and others, has gone up considerably, and now you're starting to see very good MDF, but at a less high price point. So look at something like TT Combat. They do. I'm looking at some of their Western stuff, for instance. It's certainly not the same quality as the Sarissa, but it's still very, very good, and it's a lot cheaper. So I think you'll see a lot more MDF stuff, and that will allow, again, a bit more to the point I was saying earlier about personalisation. You'll be able to pick up a building from or a piece of terrain from a very specialist period that previously you wouldn't have been able to get, and that will enhance the hobby no end, and I'm very excited if that happens. So that's my prediction for 2021. Well, two predictions for 2021. So I'd love to know what you think. So the three questions are, got to look down here, what's your New Year's resolution, wargaming wise? I don't want to know about all the other stuff. Wargames resolution. What will be the next big thing in 2021 in terms of period, scale, rule set, whatever you want, and what do you think, or even what would you like to see as the next innovation in 2021 for wargaming that will make wargaming even better than he is already. Anyway, just remains me to say Happy Christmas, Happy New Year. Thank you again to everybody who's subscribed, who hits that subscribe button, hits the notification button, that interacts with me on my channel, or listens to the podcast on a Monday night, 8 p.m. Every week. Really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good Christmas, a good New Year, and stay safe, stay well, and we all come back and can all get together in 2021 for a load of games and fun. Stay safe. This is Dom signing out. Bye.